and I move on with specific reference to PF, right? Again, at least 50%. We all know that we discussed in detail about the definition of wages in our first session last week. So at least 50%. So so more than 50% cannot be considered as excluded components under wage as wage. So for any purpose, be it ESI or PF or maybe any other code, any other subject, right? That is how it is now, because the wage term is defined, and it is defined in all the 4 codes, and it has uniform definition, right? So for all the 4 codes, the definition is same, right? No change at all. So again, if a company in its salary structure has availed maximum, that is 50% of excluded components, then the rest 50% will automatically at least be treated as wages. So for PF also that is the case. So it cannot, so excluded portion cannot go beyond 50%. So the PF wages would be at least 50%. But through the schemes, if some salary ceiling is fixed for making contribution, then there is an option available for the employee. They can restrict the contribution to the ceiling fixed, or they can actually make the contribution on the exact actual salary. That is their option there, right? But it appears, particularly for PF, there won't be any salary ceiling, because if we go through the definition of the term employee under section 226 of this code, right, it appears that salary ceiling, even if it is fixed, will not be available for PF. It will be there for pension scheme. It will be there for ADLI. It will be there for ESI, but not for PF. But of course, we may have to wait for scheme. Suppose if some change is brought about through the scheme, then that would be maybe advantageous for the employer, so that they can restrict the contribution to a particular amount instead of the entire salary. Then I think the chapter 3 shall apply to establishments employing 20 or more employees. I think we discussed on this industry specific application. It is removed, right? So it is whatever be the industry. If the establishment has 20 or more employees, now then PF chapter 3 will become applicable. And no wage ceiling will be prescribed for Provident Fund employee coverage. We discussed on this. So it will be available for employees pension scheme. It will be available for employees deposit linked insurance schemes, but it will not be available for the Provident Fund scheme as per section. If we just go through the section 226, the definition for the term employee as it is currently given in the code on social security, and employees, suppose if ceiling is fixed, right, but to determine the applicability of ESI or PF to an establishment, right, so the all the persons, whether they are getting a salary of less than the ceiling fixed or more than the ceiling fixed or equivalent to that, all the persons are to be counted again to understand whether the establishment is engaging 10 persons or 20 persons to determine the applicability of ESI and PF respectively, right? So it is very clear now, because there is a confusion whether should we take into account only the coverable employees for covering the establishment, or we need to take into account the non-coverable employees also. I think some clarity is given now, so we may have to consider both the types of employees to determine the applicability of both ESI and PF in respect of an establishment. And the term employee again specifically excludes only apprentices engaged under the Apprentices Act. So again, I'm not very sure, because we may have to infer from this definition, then the apprentices taken under the certified standing order or apprentices taken under the policy followed by the company. Currently, I think they are also not considered as employees for the purpose of PF. But as per the definition given under the code, it appears only those apprentices who are taken as per the provisions of the Apprentices Act. They are alone excluded from the definition of the term employee. So which uses maybe a meaning that other apprentices, right, they are to be treated as employees. But I'm not again very sure this definition is common, not only for PF. This will be applicable for ESA also. This will be applicable for gratuity also, right? So then I think this will have more financial implication for the employers. And the code provides for specifying differential rates of employees. As I said, yes, this will be now extended to the unorganized workers also, where the rate of contributions could differ. And the exemption, yes, it is now possible. We can, the establishments can get exemption from the application of PF Act, but but only if there are 100 or more employees engaged in that establishment, they can only go for making the application and get the exemption. Of course, they will be under exempted. They will be treated as exempted establishment. Of course, they will have their own maybe rules framed for that, and that will be almost similar to the provisions of the PF chapter in the code. Only then I think that will be approval will be given. And now I think these are all certain specific changes with respect to PF.